Welcome to AF Tales. Today's story is about a man who guarantees his girlfriend's lease, gets blocked overnight, and uses one lease clause to protect himself and take his life back. As you listen, ask yourself what you would do if someone made you financially responsible, then treated you like you didn't exist. I'm still processing this, and I honestly don't know if I went nuclear or if I finally did what I should have done the moment I signed that paperwork. My name is Tyler. I'm a civil engineer in Nashville. 10 months ago, I started dating Brooke, and for a while it felt easy, like the kind of relationship where you talk about weddings without it sounding crazy, the kind where you joke about getting a Labrador and argue about what to name it. Brooke was a TikTok stylist with that soft, expensive aesthetic. Champagne taste, but her income was more like an IPA budget. I make decent money, so I didn't mind covering dinners, little trips, the extra things. I thought we were building toward something. 4 months ago, she found her dream studio in the Gulch. Great building, great view, the kind of place that looks good in every video. But her credit was shaky and the landlord wanted a guarantor. She looked at me with those eyes and said, "Tyler, this could be our place eventually." And I believed her. I signed the guarantor paperwork. I fronted the $3,100 security deposit, and then I did what I always do when someone I love needs help. I overcommitted. I bought the sofa, the bed, the dining table, a television. Those linen drapes she insisted were the vibe. I assembled half of it myself because she doesn't do IKEA instructions. Typing it out now makes me feel like I'm reading someone else's bad decisions. 2 weeks ago, I brought up timelines. My lease ends in 4 months, and I figured it was a normal conversation to have. Nothing heavy, nothing like a demand. Just, "Hey, do you want to start browsing places for when we move in together?" She went stiff, not annoyed, not tired. Stiff, she said, "Not tonight, Tyler. I'm too tired for this conversation." I thought maybe she was stressed. Maybe law of the universe, wrong time, wrong night. Then she went quiet. No texts, no calls, nothing. 48 hours later, I realized I was blocked everywhere. Instagram, TikTok. My texts bounced. My calls went straight to voicemail like my number didn't exist. That's when panic hit. Because you don't block someone you love without a reason, and my brain kept trying to fill in the blanks with worst-case scenarios. I drove to her place thinking maybe she was hurt, maybe something happened. My fob still worked, so I went up. The lights were on. And the first thing I saw when I stepped inside was a pair of size 12 sneakers by the door. It sounds small, but my stomach dropped like I'd missed a step. Then I saw them. Brooke was in the kitchen making coffee. And this guy I'd never met, Chase, had his hand on her back like he belonged there. Like this wasn't some awkward new thing, like this was normal. It was 9:00 p.m. and they both looked comfortable. They turned and froze when they saw me. Nobody spoke. Not for what felt like an hour, but was probably 30 seconds. I didn't yell. I didn't demand an explanation. I didn't do the dramatic thing my pride wanted me to do. I set my key on the entry table and walked out. Sometimes the calmest moment is the one where your brain stops arguing with reality. I drove home in this weird, quiet state, like my emotions were buffering. I sat down at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and pulled up the lease PDF. Because when life gets chaotic, my engineer brain does what it always does. It looks for structure. It looks for rules. It looks for the one part that doesn't lie. And there it was. Clause 18C, guarantor withdrawal. Guarantor may withdraw from this agreement via written notice to landlord, triggering a 30-day cure period for tenant to secure alternate guarantor or vacate the premises. I read it 3 times slowly, like it was in a foreign language. Then I drafted one email to Mr. Henderson, the landlord, professional, short. "I am formally withdrawing as guarantor for lease number. Please initiate the required 30-day cure period per clause 18C. Thank you." I CC'd the building office. I sent it at 11:47 p.m. Then I turned off my phone and went to sleep. And that's the part I kept second-guessing. Did I go too far? Was I being vindictive? Was there some innocent explanation? But she blocked me before I ever saw Chase. That's what kept playing in my head. The blocking came first. In the morning, I turned my phone on. 47 missed calls, 23 voicemails, emails flooding in from addresses I didn't recognize. And not one apology, not one. Brooke emailed from some random Gmail account. "Tyler, you can't do this to me. My dad's credit is awful and Chase can't qualify for anything. You're making me homeless over nothing. This is petty and cruel. Call Mr. Henderson and fix this." Over nothing. That's what she called it. Then Chase emailed me. "Bro, you need to be a man about this. Call the landlord back and stop being vindictive. Brooke made a mistake, but you're going way too far." A mistake. That word is doing a lot of work when you use it to describe cheating and blocking. Here's a quiet red flag people miss. When someone hurts you and their first response is to accuse you of hurting them, they're not sorry. They're scared they lost control. I didn't respond. I screenshotted everything. I saved it in a folder on my desktop labeled correspondence. Then Brooke's best friend, Janelle, texted me. "Why are you trying to push Brooke out of her home? This isn't like you." That one hit harder because Janelle was a decent person, so I replied with the plain facts. She blocked me for asking about our future. I found her with another guy in the apartment I'm financially responsible for. I withdrew from a legal obligation I never should have signed. 3 hours of silence. Then Janelle wrote back, "Oh, she didn't mention that part." Of course she didn't. Brooke tried a new angle the next day, a long email about splitting things fairly. She wanted to keep the sofa, the bed, the TV, the dining table. You know, the expensive stuff. She graciously offered to let me take the lamp and a bookshelf, and asked if I could pay the last 2 utility bills to be mature about this. The audacity was almost impressive. So I did what I do when someone tries to argue feelings against receipts. I made a spreadsheet. 3 columns: item, purchase price, receipt link. Amazon orders, Best Buy purchase history, bank statement screenshots, total $48–47 worth of furniture, all purchased by me, all with proof. I sent it back with one line. Available for pickup Saturday 1000 a.m. to 200 p.m. Please confirm access will not be obstructed or I will request a civil standby. I didn't want to fight. I wanted my property. Then the building manager, Denise, called me. She said the landlord asked her to pull FOB logs for documentation, and then she offered me something I didn't ask for. She told me Chase's card had been used to enter the building the same night Brooke blocked me, and the logs showed he'd been piggybacking the elevator at least 12 times that month. Their building had a guest policy. 14 nights per 30 days. She said the HOA board president, Mrs. Whitaker, was already aware. I thanked Denise and saved that information. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I've learned that when things go legal, details matter. Saturday came. My buddy Nate, a firefighter built like a brick wall, showed up at 945 with a U-Haul and a grin like he was looking forward to this. I'm not proud that I felt safer just because he was there, but I did. We got to the building and Brooke was waiting in the lobby with Chase. She had stacked 4 items by the mailboxes: a lamp, a bookshelf, a random end table, 1 throw pillow. "That's everything that's actually yours," she said, arms crossed. "The rest we bought together." I stared at her like she'd spoken in static. "Brooke," I said, "either we do this smoothly, or I call the non-emergency line and request a civil standby officer. Your choice." Nate stepped forward, all 6'4" of him, and gave Chase that firefighter stare that says, "I've carried heavier things than you." They moved aside. 2 hours later, the truck was full. The West Elm sofa, the king bed frame, the 65-inch TV, the dining table, every single thing I had receipts for. Brooke kept saying, "This is theft," but she couldn't explain how it was theft when it was furniture I paid for. Chase muttered about being a man, which was rich coming from a guy who walked into someone else's life through a blocked phone screen. And while we were loading, Mrs. Whitaker from the HOA board walked over with a clipboard. "Miss Ellis," she said, "I need to discuss the ongoing violations of our overnight guest policy. We have documented 14 separate overnight visits by an unauthorized resident this month, plus noise complaints from units 4B and 7A. The fines total $420 so far." I didn't say a word. I just kept loading. Sometimes karma really doesn't need help. It just needs a paper trail. Then the security deposit situation hit. Remember, I paid that $3,100 out of my checking account. I had proof. So I had sent a certified letter asking the landlord to mail any deposit refund directly to me with a copy of the accounting. Mr. Henderson responded. He deducted $650 for early termination and cleaning fees. The place had been trashed, so I didn't fight that. He sent me a check for $2,450. Brooke lost it. 17 calls from unknown numbers. Emails from Chase claiming I stole her deposit. So I filed a small claims court case for the remaining $650, and I attached their emails as exhibits, including the ones where Brooke called my furniture gifts and Chase said I wouldn't get a dime. Court date set for Wednesday. Tuesday night, I got an e-transfer for $650, no message, just money. I withdrew the claim the next morning. I didn't want to destroy anyone's life. I wanted out. I wanted my property back. I wanted to stop being financially tied to someone who could block me like I was disposable. A couple days later, Denise texted me an update I didn't ask for. Brooke gave notice. She couldn't find another guarantor. Chase's credit qualified him for nothing. They were moving into his shared apartment in Antioch. Janelle apologized for taking Brooke's side at first. She said Brooke's version of events had been incomplete. That's a polite way of saying she lied. And the strangest part is, I wasn't angry anymore. That cold, calculating energy I had right after I walked out of that apartment was gone. Because once the math is done and the paperwork is clean, your emotions finally stop trying to fix what isn't fixable. Life got quiet again. I set up my own place in East Nashville. The furniture looked better here anyway. A week later, I ran into Brooke at Kroger. It was awkward for about 10 seconds. Then she apologized. She said blocking me was wrong and she knew it was wrong when she did it. She said she was couch surfing now. Credit shot from the broken lease. And Chase wasn't as committed when consequences showed up. I told her I hoped things worked out for her, and I meant it. No gloating. No victory lap. Just Denise told me the building updated the guest exactly where those paths after the whole situation. Mr. Henderson even sent me a short thank you note for handling everything professionally. My therapist said I had withdrawals turn into 6 months ago, and I would have enabled the situation. I would have tried to keep the peace. I would have signed another lease and convinced myself love meant tolerating discomfort forever. But sometimes conflict is just necessary maintenance. I started dating someone new. Emma's a teacher. She has her own apartment. She insists on splitting everything 50-50. We're taking it slow. After Brooke, I appreciate someone who communicates directly instead of disappearing the moment a real conversation shows up. The folder on my desktop labeled correspondence is archived now. Sometimes I see it when I'm looking for work files and I remember that month when my world flipped upside down. But it doesn't hurt anymore. It's just data. And the lesson is clear. Love without respect isn't love. Commitments without paperwork are just wishes. And if someone blocks you to avoid accountability, they're not too tired for the conversation. They're too comfortable with you carrying the risk. Lesson 1. Never guarantee a lease for someone who hasn't shown you consistent responsibility. Love is not a substitute for a credit score. Lesson 2. Blocking is not a boundary. It's a control tactic when used to dodge hard conversations. Lesson 3. If you're financially liable, you have every right to protect yourself legally. That's not revenge. That's self-defense. Lesson 4. Receipts beat arguments. When someone tries to rewrite history, documentation keeps you sane. Lesson 5. Peace often starts the moment you stop negotiating with disrespect. What would you have done if you walked into the apartment you guaranteed and found someone else living there? And do you think Tyler went too far? Or do you think withdrawing as guarantor was the first healthy boundary he set in the whole relationship?